1970, August 29th, I think it was, during the Chicano moratorium. Our other guest today is the author of Killing the American Dream, and it's a delight to welcome back Pilar Marrero, who joined, it's been what, 20 years or more? 20 something?
I can't even remember. It's more than 20 years the last time I was here.
We don't want to remember.
No.
Yeah. Okay, the book again, it's called Killing the American Dream. In the 21st century, the 13th year of the 21st century, what is the American dream? Is it still a house with a white picket fence and a car that you're making payments on and stuff like that?
I think the American dream is whatever you have in your heart, whatever that immigrant that is looking to go to a better place, to have a better life, and whatever that immigrant's ideal is, or at least hope is the American dream. And people still, as long as there are people looking at this country, and other countries as well, but this country mainly because it's the country that receives more immigrants, or has received more immigrants across history, whatever the people have in their hearts, whenever somebody comes here with an idea of having a better life for themselves or for their children, usually, that's still the American dream alive.
So it's easy for us to imagine, and we're both immigrant stock, as they would say. It's easy for us to imagine talking about killing the American dream in terms of immigrants. But there are a lot of people who are citizens of this country who would say that the immigrants are also killing the American dream, no?
Yeah, I know there are people who say that, and people who have said that all through the history of this country. My book goes a little bit into that history and compares some of the statements and the concerns that people express today about immigrants, in particular undocumented, unauthorized immigrants. And I go back in history and look at the way people used to refer to other waves of immigration. Let me tell you, it hasn't changed that much. Even though people now say it's about being illegal, quote unquote, being illegally here, the reality is that when immigrants in the past came legally or illegally, they were referred to as problematic, as a threat to this country, as people who were going to change the culture, as people who were going to destroy the economy. And this was done from the beginning with Germans, with the Irish, with Italians, with Chinese. I mean, you name it. The history is there for whoever wants to look at it. So you have to look at the issue from that point of view, saying this is nothing new. We have to examine the realities of today's situation. Maybe it is, it is a very special situation. We are, in the 21st century, and we have a globalized economy across the world and all that stuff. But in reality, the essence of the criticism about immigrants has always been the same.
So would it be possible for us to speculate that concerning immigration, primarily focused on Latin America, that we could say, this too will pass?
This anti-immigrant wave?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will pass, hopefully. We'll probably find some other
somebody else to pick on.
Somebody else to pick on, and maybe we Latin Americans or Latino immigrants here will probably join some of that picking, because it's a tradition of the American immigration history that sometimes immigrants arrive here and they move on, and then they look at the ones that come later and go, oh no, I got here, I'm fine, but those guys that come behind, yeah, no, we have to restrict those guys. So it's kind of a proud history of this country too.
Yeah, although here in Southern California, where we have this great melting pot or salad bowl, whatever you want to call it, we're kind of running out of people that we can look down, because there's somebody from everywhere here, more or less.
California is an example of how things have changed. As you and I lived, the 90s, and how, Proposition 187 was passed. Undocumented immigrants were blamed for decay, the decay in whatever, in the economy, in the culture. Things have changed since then, because not just California has become more Latino, and Latinos have voted and have more of a voice, but also all of Californians have had more of a time to live and look at their neighbors, their immigrant neighbors, and realize that they're just like them. They're just here, most of them. I'm not saying all of them are, like the best. There are some criminals that need to be deported, but
and of all demographics.
And of all demographics. But people look at them and they go, well, they're hard workers. They're like us. They want to, they have families. They want the best for their families. And actually now, if you poll California voters, their attitudes about immigration are vastly different.
From the rest of the country, or most of the rest
And
of the
from
country.
themselves 25 or 20 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Are we focusing, or not we, is there too much attention focused on immigration from Latin America as opposed to immigration from Canada, from Asia, and from Europe?
There it is, but there is a reason for that. I mean, the majority of immigrants and the majority of undocumented immigrants are Latinos, and they're mostly Mexicans. They're about 60+%. I was listening to an expert talk about yesterday. But still, you know, there's at least 35% of them undocumented who are not Mexican, who are not Central American. There are Chinese, there are Indian, there are Koreans, there are, you know, there might even be like some Irish or Canadians. I mean, there's all kinds of people there.
But they don't get the same kind of, you know...
No. No, they don't. And we don't get the same kind of obsession with the northern border that we get with the southern border. And people, you know, if you want to introduce terrorists or bad people into the United States, it would be much easier to do it from the northern border because the southern border right now is as secure as it's more secure than it has ever been. We've spent, right now, every year, we spend more on enforcement than we spend on all the other law enforcement that the federal government does, including DEA, CIA, FBI. I mean, it's mind-boggling what we're spending on that.
This week, we saw an unprecedented move on Capitol Hill with apparently both the Republicans, the Democrats, the conservatives, the liberals coming together and saying, well, maybe we can work something out here.
Yeah. Immigration reform has been a necessity, and it is a necessity. It is a necessity for this country, not just for the immigrants. I recognize that a lot of attention is put on, you know, the rights of the immigrants who are here and all that. But, you know, putting that aside, let's think about the interest of the United States of America. You have 11 million people who are already in the fabric of this country, in the economy. Many of them have children who are citizens. They came here, you could say, the wrong way. But the reason they came here the wrong way is because they couldn't do it the right way. People think, oh, why don't they just get in line and go to the embassy? The reality is that our legal immigration system has gotten so complicated, so bogged down with all these amendments and all these laws that people kept adding to try to take control of the problem, that it made it virtually impossible for people to immigrate legally. Now, would you have jobs on this side of the border that are calling these people and saying, well, we have all these jobs here, we can't fill them, you know, in higher economic times, and even now when our economy is not so good, we still have jobs that are not filled by Americans, and we will have more of that in the future because, as we know, we have a demographic that is getting old. We have the baby boomer generation starting to retire, and we're going to need a whole lot of people, not just to pay taxes, to buy their homes, to be the professionals, but also in the low skill and middle skill occupations. We don't have enough people here to fill some of these needs. Very,
very quickly, Pilar, the rejection of the Republicans in this last election by Hispanics, by Asians, African Americans, so on and so forth. Is that motivating the change in attitude?
It is absolutely motivating the change. Immigration is one issue that some leaders in the Republican Party see as an issue to moderate their image. We'll see what the rest of the party decides. I think there's an internal war brewing in the Republican Party between the Tea Party and the more moderates.
And one really quick answer. What's the best reason to buy the book?
Because you need to understand what's going on with immigration.
Yeah, wonderful. Pilar, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We'll tell you more about the book when we come back right after this message.